I remember just people would ask questions like, "Yo, who made that?" And I'm like, "I did." They're like, "Yo, that's fire." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. All right."
Yeah. Welcome to A Musical Mind. I'm your host, Richard Raymond II. I'm a recording engineer, music producer, and multi-instrumentalist located in Colorado Springs, Colorado. In this podcast, we'll talk to a variety of musicians about the music-making process, as well as the life and mindset that have helped them find success as a musical mind. Thank you for being here. Here we go. What's up, everyone? Welcome to A Musical Mind. Today's guest is Johnny Burgos, the Brooklyn, New York-based singer and producer. Johnny's got a new record coming out on June 7th, 2024. We talk a bit about that. And we also talk about his upbringing in New York, where he was raised on salsa and soul and surrounded by an eclectic bunch of people from all sorts of different backgrounds, making him the man he is today. All right, here we go. Johnny Burgos. All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of A Musical Mind. I'm here with today's musical mind, Johnny Burgos, the
Yes, sir. Yes,
Brooklyn-based
sir.
funkin' soul artist and producer. Johnny, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. There's a lot of great things going on right now. Can't complain.
Cool. First of all, I've got to ask, you're in New York, I'm in Colorado. Is it snowing like a motherfucker over there too?
It is definitely not snowing like a motherfucker
Okay.
over here. It
It's
was,
been
I think, like 68 degrees out today. It was gorgeous.
really. See, I don't
Yeah.
really follow the weather at all. So it was just like through word of mouth that I heard we were going to get hit, but like literally didn't look at anything. But it's been snowing for probably at this point about 24 hours straight. So
Wow.
yeah, um, we
And it
thought
comes
we
down
were.
out there.
Yeah, it does. It usually melts pretty quick. I'm in Colorado Springs, which is like not super north, though we are high in elevation. Anyway, I was just wondering because that's kind of like been the story of my day. It's like cleaning cars, walking through slush and stuff. Um, but tell me a bit about your day. You said you were in a writing session right up until we hit record.
Yeah, I've been working on some stuff. I can't talk too much about it because it's actually it's a little top secret, but
Okay.
it's me and a homie are going pretty hard with like a pretty direct in for a big artist right now as they're putting their album together, and like we have the inside scoop on like where they're at writing wise, and how many joints they love for the album already, how much they're going for, and how many are left. So yeah, we've been kind of going at it for like the last 2.5 weeks, just
Cool.
by at least a song a day. So on top of all these other things that I also did a lot of admin today. I haven't said this to anybody yet, but I just closed the deal for my own project, the upcoming project. It's really exciting, and I did a lot of the admin and like delivered all the metadata and deliverables today. So it's a lot
Okay.
of computer time.
Sorry to give you more of it for this podcast here, but
No, this is a cool thing though.
that's cool. From what I've gathered from the interactions we've had back and forth, it seems like you really are on the hustle, and I respect that. You like each time you have a new release or something, you shoot me a message. I'm sure I'm not the only one getting that message, but that sort of thing doesn't bother me at all. I respect the grind, and you
Appreciate that.
seem to embody that. That's what this show's all about. It's doing what you can to cut through the mix, so to speak. So, I want to hear a little bit about your upbringing and how you got started with music. So, in your Instagram bio, it says "struggle bred." Tell us a little bit about what that means, and I'm sure that's shaped you into what you're doing as a musician here. So, just fill us in.
Well, absolutely. I'm originally from East New York, Brooklyn, which is has a particular reputation, and even the era that I was born in. I'm 40, so I was born in '84, and That was a really wild era for New York in general, but for that neighborhood, I mean, actually, that neighborhood was the murder capital of the country at the
Holy
time I was
shit.
born in it. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a wild place, but one I didn't stay there my entire childhood, but I bounced all over Brooklyn. But I think when you come from things like that and you see things in an early stage of life, you just there's always somewhat of a connection to it. And I was always around Brooklyn, and my dad was a pretty he lived a tough life. He was a tough dude. He was a street dude, super smart, and even like self-educated in a lot of ways. But he was just a tough dude, and also had a lot of respect. So I think that that instilled something in me to have like some kind of allure for that life and that kind of respect.
Mm.
So I don't know. I kind of got lost that way for a while. Like I got lost in the streets, and I was, being a knucklehead. And this is like early teenage years into, mid 20s. I pretty much, I wouldn't say a thug, but I was living that kind of thug life. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Definitely, criminal activity for sure. And I got caught up in stuff. I did time right out of high school, um, I started to wake up slowly, but I think it also just took. I learned a lot of things the hard way. And I think, because I was always a curious and like artistic spirit, and I was just looking for an alternative to like the status quo
Yeah.
before I knew what that was. And I was just so frustrated, like, wait, this is all we have like to choose for life. Like
Mm.
these are the choices put in front of me, or like that people want it from me. Were like, I don't want this life. But before I knew and found the tools to like find that for myself or achieve that for myself, I was just mad and running wild and taking it out on other people. And you know,
Yeah.
but so yeah, I mean, there was a lot of uh adversity, and I definitely, I guess, class wise and financially, just very humble beginnings. My mother came from a really large family. My grandmother had 13 kids. They kind of
Damn.
all, yeah, and they kind of all supported each other. And it was just a very big family vibe. Like none of us had too much, but you were very loved, and you knew that.
Yeah.
Um, and music was a huge part of my life. And I think my culture, like my mom is Portuguese and Cape Verdean. My father's
Okay.
Puerto Rican. So there's a lot of, and there's also like a lot of mixed race uh relationships and family, especially on
Sure.
my mother's side. And so that just brought so many different cultures around me. I say it a lot, like I was raised on South and soul music, because it was a huge Latin and South Side like influence, but also very much soul and funk. And like, I remember early on having my little boombox radio, and my brother used to make me mixtapes of like, he made me Al Green, James Brown, Funkadelic, Sly and the
Nice.
Family, Donny Hathaway, Stevie, and like it just blew my mind, this stuff. And like I absorbed it so much. And then, I think there was a real connection to music and rhythm. I used to like build my own drum sets out of everything I could
Yeah.
possibly find, and I would steal like the best long number two pencils from the school. I got caught. I got in trouble a few times for stealing them, because those are my drumsticks, because they were
Yeah.
perfect, and
Yeah.
and you use like the back of the eraser head, they bounce like a real
That's
stick.
hilarious. My daughter
Um,
was literally just playing on a in a bowl with chopsticks, like,
yeah,
probably 20 minutes ago.
I love that. Yeah, I love
Mhm.
that. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think there were a lot of people around me in deep in survival mode, but I think there was like a lot of me screaming for like, you know, I have musical ability,
Yeah, yeah,
foster it. But it just wasn't what was happening. There wasn't any space for that. And I don't knock anybody for it, because I found my way anyway. But yeah, like I think that bred a very self-made and um kind of like self-prophesizing kind of trajectory for me.
sure.
Um, and then I also learned how to use all the stuff and the frustration because of the adversity or like the pain, and learned the process of like the cathartic process of like using that to make really good shit with. Like it was like my pain is my fuel to burn to, to keep going
Totally.
within this like artistic journey.
So at what point did you begin, like, making and producing music? I know you primarily as a singer, but it sounds like you've done some drumming as well. Like, what instruments were being played, or is it just your voice?
Well, I guess I wouldn't even call myself any kind of musician formally. Like I can groove on drums a little bit, and
Sure.
I've played a lot of hand percussion and have like made people believe that I was a professional or knew what I was doing, but
Yeah,
I don't really, I guess, know what I'm doing. But I know that I do have a certain aptitude for like feel and rhythm and groove. But
totally.
I grew up around it. A close uncle of mine, Andre Martinez, is a pretty well accomplished and world class percussionist. Mostly like it started as like a Latin thing. He was mostly a conguero and like
Mhm.
bongo player and various like Latin and Brazilian types of groups. And then he got taken under the wing of jazz legend, was it Cecil Taylor, because
Mm.
he liked the way he played and he wanted him to play like Kit. And my uncle was like, I don't really do that. But he was like, I
Sure.
know, but I like the way you play. Because Cecil was out there. He was a wild dude.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
they shared a brownstone together, and we were always there too. And he was just wild. And yeah, he would and he play, and I remember just being around that and being around and just having, I guess, the exposure to somebody who was like choosing that as a way of life.
Totally.
Even though now he's a contractor, but he still messes around and stuff. But like, I think that was the first glimpse of like, oh wait, like I could do that. I could do my version of that. And I knew I was so drawn into like the drumming and the rhythm, but I was really shy and I didn't show things. But then one day, because he always had drums, especially at his house when we had, and
Mm,
they had a nice house, and it was like when and my family's like very Latino, so like if we're all getting together, at one point there's going to be loud music playing and people are going to be dancing because that's what
totally.
we dance.
Yeah.
And and then usually that was, the drums coming out didn't like followed. It wasn't far after, like congas or bongos or something, a shaking like
Totally.
and he was always playing and then inviting people to play, but I was shy. And then one day I just went for it, and he freaked out and he was like, "Who taught you how to do that?" And like because he was so excited, I thought he was like yelling at me. I thought I like fucked something up
Yeah,
because
yeah.
and I was like, I don't know, I don't know. And he was like, no, that's who, like this, that's good. Like keep going, keep doing it. Like he's like, you just did that. And I was like, yeah, like I don't know, I listened to you and I copied what you were doing. He's like, you just did that by copying, and
Yeah.
he was so excited. And then like showed me a few things, but it never really turned into like him fostering it because I think he was just all over the place. But that was like the for like getting validation from him was like, oh shit, like I know how to do this.
Yeah.
And then I became obsessed with like with rhythm in a way. And at the same time, I was starting to really pay a lot of attention to hip hop because it was such an influential culture around me. And my brother was really involved in it too. My brother was pretty well known graffiti writer and just artist and big artistic influence. And my other sister was creative in fashion too. So I was just like just excited about it all. But then I really just got obsessed with hip hop. And, by that time I had friends who had like older brothers and had like MPCs and ASRs and beat machines.
Mhm.
And I would just get my hands on anything I can get on. Um, and then eventually what happened, my brother, because my siblings are a lot older, my mom had me way later.
Oh,
And
me so I'm the same.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, my closest sibling is like 13 years older than
Um,
me.
8 for me, but still pretty
Yeah.
big. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a gap. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, like I said, I was a little bit of a knucklehead. I was getting in trouble, and then I was showing signs of like getting already lost in that direction, even though I continued anyway. But they were like, "All right, let's try to move, or let's get out of here, or something." And
Mhm.
so we moved out to Long Island, which was huge for me because I'd never even like experienced a suburb like that, let alone lived in it. But then that was a huge change. But of course, I like found my people quickly, and I made friends with uh this kid named Jonathan, and we started this, and his older cousin had like a studio in his garage, and he would make beats, but and they were cool, but like we were just so nerdy about hip hop and just wanted to make stuff. And I don't remember Jonathan was like obsessed with like a RZA kind of style, like super sloppy and choppy. And I was like, DJ Premier, like Jay Dilla, and
Mhm.
we were just trying to emulate at first. But I think my gift for rhythm, or like whatever, my aptitude for being around it so long, like started. I remember just people would ask questions like, "Yo, who made that?" And I like I did. They're like, "Yo, that's fire." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, cool, all right."
Yeah.
And so like I always just noticed, because there was always other people around and people wanted to be a part of it, but I always
Sure.
noticed my stuff getting like attention or like raising eyebrows, like, "Yo, that's dope." Huh?
Yeah.
And I think that's when I started to realize, like, oh, like I think I'm good at this. So
Mhm.
at least it was like on my mind, but I was still, running wild and doing dumb shit and not like prioritizing it. But then, you know, other things happen, and like, it got really serious to a point where like, you know, I was putting myself in some really, really stupid and shitty situations. And, the two ways that are eventually the ways out of that felt looming and like closer and closer. And I did not want to go back to jail. I knew that for a fact. And I didn't want to die from just doing the dumb shit I was doing. So I was like, let me really just get my act together. And, I think at the time I had met like an old ex, and she was like really trying to help me like stay straight. And um I think I took that opportunity to be like, let me really give this a try. Let me like do stuff. And then there was a moment like actually I kind of skipped the part, but there's like when I first came home, actually my sister held me accountable in a really important way, and she was like, "Listen, you got to live with me. So my rules, and if you want to live in this house, I don't want none of that shit going on.
Mm.
And I want you to go to school and get a job.
Mhm.
And I need proof of that. Like I need to know that for a fact." So I really appreciate the accountability she put on me, and I told her that I wanted to go to school for music, and she was
Mhm.
like, "Wait, what?" Like, because no, I kind of kept it a secret for a while.
Yeah.
And then at one point I showed her the stuff I've been working on, and she was like, "Wait, who is this? Like, what, like?" And she's like, "Who made all the like the stuff in the background?" And like, 'cause she didn't like know music, she was like, "But how did you do all that?" And I was like, I did. I made it. Like, I produced it. I made the beats, and like I was like trying to explain to her what sampling was, because it was
Yeah.
mainly sample based, but
Yeah.
and then I like play bass lines and stuff as I was like learning pretty much what theory is, but
Sure.
um and I could tell she was impressed. She was like, "This is good. Like, I don't
Yeah.
even know you could do this."
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like just like, "Oh, this is cool, you're doing this." It was like, "You're doing this. I didn't even know you could, and it's good."
Mhm.
So I was like, and then she was like, "All right, fine. Like let's find resources and let's find a school." And I remember I found it was like the easiest one you can find, because they advertise on the radio regularly. It was called
Sure.
Institute of Audio Research. It doesn't even exist anymore,
Okay.
but it was in the West. It was in the Village, like right by Union Square, really. Um, and I started there, and I did learn a lot. I made a lot of good friends, but I never finished because I got back into my knucklehead shit and got caught up in some stuff. But and then I came back to it. That's why there's a weird gap for me there. But I came back to it. But when I first started, I was able to get housing as well, and they did housing off campus because it was a small spot. And
Oh,
I had met, yeah. So and they had this. They had, I guess, a relationship with this place. It was an old hotel in the Brooklyn Heights, St. George Hotel, and they had like it was like multiple schools had like other like it was like
that's
housing options
cool as
for schools
hell.
that did. Yeah, it was cool, and it
Yeah.
was and the day I was moving in, I met my best friend, who's still like my best friend to this day, Liza Colby, who's an incredible singer and artist as well, and one half of Susu. She led the Liza Colby sound. She's one half of the Goal Setting, which is a project we have together. Um, and I definitely credit her as someone who's like championed, my ability to, and especially like singing vocally, because she comes from a incredible. I love her family like my family. She's literally like my sister. But they're all musicians, her entire family, and
Mm,
her dad's a super accomplished producer, songwriter. Her mom the same. Her brother is like one of the best trombonists in the country right now. Like, and they're like the real deal, like music family. And knowing that about her, I've always, her voice is insane. Like she's like heavenly. And she was always, it's like she bugged me for years because at the time I was just making beats. And I had like maybe like I'd rhyme a little bit and I was writing songs, but like, and I'd have concepts for things even melodically. And I would like have ideas in my head and I would hum them to her. And for years, she'd be like, dude, I think you should sing that. You got a good voice. Like, and I'd be like, you're the singer. Like, just sing. What are you talking about? I don't sing. And then she wouldn't let it go. She'd be like, dude, let me like, I'll help you. Like, let me teach you something. Like, you got a good voice. And
yeah,
then there was like one idea. I think she was just like, no, I'm not singing that. That's beautiful. That sounds so good. You sang it. I'm not re-singing it. And I was
yeah,
like, huh, really? Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a series of like small validations that boost the confidence. And then I think the skill set jumps when the confidence can
totally.
jump,
And so you're
just a
like in
series of
your
those.
20s or so when this is happening?
Yeah. Like early 20s around
Wow.
there. And I didn't start really pursuing it till like professionally, like
Mhm.
29, 30. But I found my way eventually through because I was like trying to like move beats and I had other relationships that, people were like, oh, like I know this dude looking for beats or this label's looking for beats. Cause I started really making beats a lot, but like not really knowing what to do with them or like how to, I guess, build relationships to help me professionally because I wasn't I pulled away from the school network, even though I did eventually go back to finish to get the credit, but um I don't think they ever like really got me the internship that they promised, but um yeah, and then I think by just some random event, just by way of some random event I got invited to that was like an open call for people and it was like a mixer and I think it was actually Matthew Knowles's like label. He had a smaller label and he was having like his artist roster like showcase and he wanted like people to come and I forgot how I was even connected to that, but so I went and it was held at this studio called Flux, and I went to the place, and it was just this weird building that was so unassuming in the Lower East Side, and I got up there, and it was like, and even then when it was just that floor, like it just felt like a magical place, and I was like, damn, like after being there for a few hours, I was like, I want to just be here and be around this and be a part of this in some capacity, and so I asked, I'll never forget. Actually, he was an assistant at the time, and he's now one of my best friends, and still like one of my engineers, like on my own stuff. When I'm like my own stuff that I like produce, write, sing on. So like I'd like to have a layer of separation sometimes in terms of like engineering and mixing.
Mhm.
Besides Ben Lindell, who formerly worked for UA, part of Pure Mix. He's a super accomplished engineer in his own right, and we eventually became partners in a studio together at Engine Room. But so yeah, Ben was the first person I talked to at Flux, which is hilarious. I just realized that I forgot about that. And then yeah, I started interning there, and that was like shit, like 15 years ago. And I'm
Wow.
still part of Flux. I did my last keys overdubs for this next album at Flux. Like, and the place has grown so much. It's like they're like the call after Electric Lady because they're so sought after. It's a dope place, and I'm like so
Sweet.
honored and lucky to be a part of it. Yeah.
That's amazing. I never would have guessed, like, hearing you sing and seeing you sing because 'cause you've got great content, and I've seen, like, the first time I heard you sing, I was seeing you, so your whole aura and everything. To think that, like, you hadn't really done that until you were in your 20s is super surprising to me. Just kinda I would've figured that was something you were doing, pretty much forever. Obviously, the rhythm and the love and the passion was there from the jump, but that's surprising to me.
I mean, thank you. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there was something in me innately, and some kind of like programming and influence that was there. I just, again, I think a lot of it was the confidence and the ability to like really show up for it. Because I think once I started to feel comfortable and once I learned things that made me feel, I guess, a little validated and like, oh, I can do this.
Mhm.
Then like the progression was crazy. It was fast. Um, yeah.
Um, can you tell us a little bit about the role of collaboration and how it's played into your personal growth?
Oh man, it's been used for me because I realize I think everybody has a different style and some people are like incredibly talented from jump. I don't think I'm one of those people, but I think I'm really really persistent and obsessive, and
Mhm.
especially if I have good company around me. Like I've and I know people say this is a good thing to do, but I tend to keep people around me who are so much better at what I do because I love to grow. And sometimes I can overdo it and I can break myself down and
Yeah.
it's too much. But I think I've worked on that muscle for so long that like I mean it's a little psychotic. I like to push myself and I like to grow and lately it's a mix of like music and business for me because I've really had to, and I think you have to these days really stay on top of
Yep.
how you're learning about the business. Yeah, it's crazy. It's a little jarring and unhealthy, but I try to find a balance there. But I definitely collaboration is for me is incredibly important, and I think it is in general for a lot of creatives because you just it promotes so much growth and also I think interconnectivity is really good for just us as humans. And I don't know, there's nothing better to me than like just the synergy of a bunch of people in the same room, like even like working on one song and like everybody's excited for their part of this, like a single part collectively.
Mhm.
Like, um, and I've, every time I'm immerse myself in a situation like that where there's new people around me that are really good, like I always grow and something else comes out that I'm like even more amazed that I could be a part of than before. Um, and I think even my growth is a testament to that. Like every time I take on a new project, there are usually some new collaborators. There's some old ones too, but I tend to kind of keep going, especially if it's like, a lot of people. I've been lucky to and blessed to work with a lot of dope people and talented musicians. So they're busy, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm also not one to like sit around and wait because like I write at least an idea a day.
Mhm.
So I I keep the things flowing, but I love that because I have a large network. So when I am working on something and I know people, because I like people and I like to get to know people and learn people in ways and see how we relate because I think that's a beautiful thing and it's the human experience. So
Yep.
then when like I know what people's lane and like style is or like how they can complement a certain idea and why, like I start something and I'm like, oh man, let me send this to Johnny, yo, let me send
Yeah.
this to Morgan, let me send this to Jeremy, like because I know like I love it when I'm like I get to that point I'm like, oh man, Jeremy fucked this idea up,
Yeah.
so let me get it ready for him and send it. But um yeah, I think I can't say enough about collaboration and how much it'll help you grow and even just learn too, like learn about the business and it also cross pollinates contacts and network. It's
Totally.
really important.
That's, like, a big reason why I'm doing this podcast, and it's funny to hear you say all this, though, because 'cause you're talking to someone who's made, I don't know, like, I could be wrong, but I think about, like, 5 full-length records entirely by myself.
Yeah,
So, it's like, I've I've absolutely all of my collaboration has mostly come in performing live because I needed other people to do that. But for the
Yeah, yeah.
most part, like, my writing and recording process, for the most part, since moving to Colorado, I do have a friend that I play with, and that's purely us collaborating. But typically, it's just me and no one else. And, but, like, everything that you're saying totally resonates with me, and I'm kind of just like, "Shit, I need to I need to do more of that." My goal is kind of to do, I haven't met a ton of people. I've only lived out here in Colorado for about coming up on 3 years. I haven't met a ton of musicians in this area that, like, speak to me, I guess, which doesn't
Okay.
bother me because it makes me feel like I have a place, you know? Like, there's
Yeah,
a need, um, and I'm sure
absolutely,
it's
yeah.
there. It's also a growing area, so, like, we're growing at a faster rate than Denver last time I checked,
Oh,
um,
wow. But I
so
feel that you can't force it, you know, and
no, it
I
doesn't
hate
really
forcing it.
doesn't bother me. So I've had, like, one person that I have a really strong musical connection with out here. Other than that, just kind of been me. Um, but I've never really I've had some friends play on tracks of mine, but I've never really done, like, a collaborative track with someone, and I have a few people who are interested in doing that sort of thing, and, like, I have everything I need right behind me to,
Yeah,
like, work kinda remotely. I think, like, post-COVID, that's, like, been the idea that's been brewing for me, um, and, like, I see this podcast as my form while I'm here and kind of, like, not really, we're known for we have great spots for hiking and shit. It's not like
yeah.
I'm in, like, a major metropolis where there's, like, tons of art and culture, and I don't mean to shit on the area, there is that too, but, it's a little bit different. Like, before I moved out here, I lived in Logan Square in Chicago, which is, like,
Okay.
there's tons of
I
artists
know, yeah,
there,
I
and
know.
so it was
Yeah.
very, uh just different environment, and I wanted that, um, mostly for just, like, my health as a human. Now I have a family, I'm married, this is, like, a phenomenal place to raise a family, but, yeah, it's not like a thriving music scene, I will say, because I don't wanna say a thriving art scene, because there's plenty of creative people out here, and almost everyone's down with mushrooms, which is really cool. Because like, there's that culture is just, like,
Yeah, yeah.
commonplace out here, and I love that, but, I feel like I can bring a lot of the music over here, but in the meantime, I wanna, like, if I'm not meeting people, in person, so to speak, I wanna try to do collaboration remotely with other people because I know it would be cool. I think it'd be fun, and I think it would be a great way to grow my audience. Not that you
Yeah,
asked me anything, but all of you talking, I'm like, "All right, well, this is how I'm gonna, this is my route to that," because I do think collaboration's something that's been missing for
totally. No, I feel that. I mean, you have to find the ways you can do it. Like, I did a lot of remote stuff, when we had to. Being in New York City is different. There's a lot of access, but it was a hard adjustment. Even though I do spend, like, I think this day and age, part of the process is being alone a lot with yourself, because I do a lot of self-produced stuff, and I start a lot of stuff on my own. I record myself at home, and so there's a lot of alone time and hours put in just in my studio by myself, for sure. I mean, not everybody's built like you to, like, be a multi-instrumentalist like that, which is amazing. I wish I was. I mean, I've gotten really good at, like, I can program and sequence really well, and I know my way around a keyboard in a basic way enough to, like, at least sell the idea enough to, like, the killer players that I'll send it to, so they can
sure.
interpret it in their own way. Um, and even sometimes I'll do stuff. I love it when, like, they're like, "No, these chords are fire, man. Like, do you even know what you played?" I'm like, "Really?"
Oh,
But
yeah.
like, I'm glad it works then.
Yeah,
But Yeah, I know we spoke about collaboration briefly. I mean, it was a little crazy for me. It still is a bit, but I'm definitely down. Like I love to. I just because also you learn too how powerful not just the process is, but like the catalog is, you know, and you never know what you're gonna make with somebody else. And sometimes I'm like, I live for that thrill too. Like, I don't know what this person makes or what they're known for, but like put us in a room because I'm at that point where like I do this every day. The muscle's so strong on me. Like you put me in a room with some people who make music and we're gonna fucking make something,
It's like that, totally. I feel
you
the
know?
same way. Um, I would love to do something too. I think, like, hearing yeah, I've listened to some of your music, and I've heard it was the first thing that I heard had, like, a much more, like, classic soul vibe to it. I don't remember what it was called, to be honest.
Hmm.
And then when I kinda, like, gone through your Spotify and listened through, I was like, "Oh, there's actually a lot more, uh, modern stuff," but, like, that older soul vibe, me hearing that, I'm like, "Ooh," like, this gives me so many ideas, and I know that, like, I've kind of gotten away from singing for the past, couple of years. I don't totally know why, but I do see that as an opportunity to work with people who, like, that's their main specialty, even though, like, I can sing pretty well. Just I've been really, really focused on my instruments and, like, musicianship, to the point to where I'm, like, kinda doing things that are a little bit too hard for me to sing over, um,
Yeah, I feel
and,
that.
like, I'm most excited by that. So I'm seeing that as, like, an opportunity where I could kind of, like, come in with, like, a full track for someone, maybe even have some sort of melodic ideas, but really just kind of, like, feature, uh, singers or,
Yeah,
a certain instrumentalist, um, somewhere. Like, I love playing
I love that.
drums. Yeah.
I love the
So
different roles too. You know, like like sometimes like I have so many different roles and different projects I'm in. Like I have the duo thing with my friend Liza, the goal setting, and I'm like, I'm more of a producer and like we tend to showcase her as a singer. I do sing on some and it's some are like full on duets and you know, because I've become more accomplished as a singer, of course, but that's like I'm more of a producer and like co-songwriter. And then there's, you know, I just love the different hats. Because for me that's I think similar to you, it's like I love the process. Like, of course, I love performing. I love writing my own stuff, and it's very meaningful. But I also just love writing a good song that
yeah,
someone else can kill too. Like I've been doing that for like the last few weeks, and it's fun. It's fun, like cracking that code
totally.
for somebody.
Um, I wanna kinda shift gears. So I found you through Instagram. Don't even know how, to be honest. Usually when
All
I'm
right,
interviewing people, I, like, remember, "Yeah, I found you from this person." I don't know how I found you, but I'm glad I
that's
did.
fair. I mean, hopefully, you just saw something you liked and was like, "Whoa, all right, cool."
Yeah. Anyway, you have some really good content, so I was just wondering, um, do you work with do you have a video team that you work with? Are you involved with any of this? Tell us a bit about, whether it's music videos or just content that you're releasing on a regular basis. Yeah, what's that process like? Because it looks pro, for lack of a better
Oh,
word.
thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it's taken me a long time. I've been lucky to be, you know, I think it has to do with like the city too and how big of a hub it is for
Sure,
creatives. Um, but I've been really blessed and lucky to be around such an amazing network of creative people and like talented, super fucking talented people who have shown interest in my art and have helped me in so many ways. Like, and yeah, I mean, shout out to like people like, you know, Kevin Pastor. We haven't made something in a while, but like he's a brilliant director and DP that I've worked with, who's a homie of mine. Um, and we've worked on a bunch of things. He's done a lot of earlier videos and super cinematic quality. But then even like branching out and doing stuff of all kinds in certain ways. And luckily my network is big enough that like, again, like almost like with my like musical collaborators, I have certain people that I can go to for like a certain look or style in terms of video. But um and sorry, the social media wise, I don't know, like I go back and forth with social media. It's, it's a double-edged sword for sure. And there's times where like I'm so down to play the game, and
It is a
like there's
game.
times where it's yeah, then
Yeah.
there's times it's complicated. And right now I'm like in between that. But I also have a record coming out that I believe in more. I think it's the best music I ever made in my life. So, you have to figure out ways to do it authentically at least, so you don't that you're not losing out on the reach it can provide, but also you're not going to lose your mind. But
Yeah, it's a
so
necessary evil for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you play it however you can and whatever feels healthy for you. And for me, that's been a little less being a little less active helps me, especially I'm lucky enough to have music that the music is working on other platforms and areas where like I can maybe buy myself a little more time at times. But I think I try to be as self-sufficient as possible when it comes to the social media stuff, especially as it progressed since like my time on Instagram. And I've had weird moments where like I built a pretty strong following, for in a few years, and then I got hacked and I lost it all. And then I
Really?
went through, yeah, it was pretty shitty. But
Oh my god. What were you at, if you don't mind me asking, numbers wise?
like just under 15K.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot.
It was substantial, and it was like
Yeah.
engaged and organically, accomplished. And
Right.
um yeah, it hurt. Like it felt like a huge blow. And then I was like, I'm not gonna be on Instagram anymore. Like fuck this. I hate Instagram. And then
Wow.
I slowly came to my senses a bit, because I realized how much work I still got. People would reach out and be like, yo man, I heard this or that. And especially after getting on some big editorial playlists around that time for my debut record, the Gray record. And yeah, I would actually I got a lot of work, especially like just through the DMs, and people find like are hearing me on those playlists and reaching out. And I was like, all right, let me get back on, at least just
Mhm.
for that reason. And
Right.
not I'm not gonna go so hard, because I was like really doing I was actually making more content than music at the time. I was really working the socials, and I wasn't necessarily happy, but I was glad that it was working at least.
Right.
But I think my music was definitely suffering, because my music I think wasn't great at that time. But that happened, and I swear for a reason. I still don't know exactly what, but so I got back on, and the interesting thing happened is that it started growing pretty quickly organically, and it
Yeah.
grew to almost where it is now, like on its own. And so many people were like, "Yo, man, we wondered where you went, and like we were looking for you." And they were like, and I was like, "Oh shit, like I have fans, like I have a
Yeah.
fan base, and this is fucking awesome." Like
Yeah.
so, like there was like a silver lining to it, but then that account, then it got hacked again. I got hacked. I can't even remember
What?
how, but yeah. And then, but the crazy shit is, I was so like, I got so pissed off, and I went like crazy, and I went dark for like 2 weeks, and I learned how to hack, and so I
Really?
back hacked him. Yeah, I got
No.
in, and then cut him out. But apparently, actually, now I just had a conversation with a social media expert, because I've been having issues with like engagement. I'm like, I don't know if my account, because now that I'm like trying to work content again and promote
Right.
stuff, because I have this album coming, I'm like, all right, let me play the game now. And that used to be able, like, it used to be effective, at least for me a little bit. I can like fall off for a while, for like maybe a month or two in advance of something. Like I can get back in, start playing the game, make some content, and get the engagement back up. But
Yeah.
it's not happening now. And I just had somebody recently look at it, and they're like, yeah, I think the hack might have affected that, because it was like a crypto kind of hack, and they were like reaching out to people trying to scam other people from my DM. So a bunch of people blocked
Interesting.
me. Yeah, it was so stupid. It was so stupid.
Oh, then you get blocked and then you're out. Yeah, I mean, that was my question is like, who's hacking and what are they doing? And there you go.
Yeah.
That is wild. I've heard a number of stories about people getting hacked, but you're the first one that got hacked twice.
Yeah.
Congrats.
What's up, guys? Taking a quick pause here to talk about my sample pack, Laid Back and Groovy Guitars. I did this sample pack with 5-Pin Media, the British sample pack label. And in this sample pack, you will find 376 live guitar loops, 144 guitar one-shots, and 142 lap steel one-shots, all drawing on an influence from psych, jazz, funk, and soul, inspired by artists such as Khruangbin, Goat, Fela Kuti, and Herbie Hancock. All these loops are both DI and the amp signal with printed effects, and are distributed over the BPMs 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, and 120, all evenly distributed over 4 different keys, giving you a wide variety of moods and feel to play with. Guys, there is a ton in this sample pack. Check it out. Get all the guitar you need for your beats. If you're a drummer, you want to play along to some guitar loops, whatever you need, this thing has it. I spent a shitload of time on this. Click the link in the show notes. Once again, Laid Back and Groovy Guitars by 5-Pin Media, available on loopmasters.com. Go and get it. You've mentioned a number of times the record that's coming out May 31st, 2024, titled All I Ever Wonder.
Well, actually, we're pushing it. I think a week maybe in June because PR has asked that we do that, so they have full capacity.
Okay, so do we have a finalized release date?
June 7th is now
June
the finalized
7th.
release.
Okay, June 7th, everyone, and it's called All I Ever Wonder. I know nothing about it. Neither does anyone else who's listening, likely, except for your fans, your strong, loyal fans, hacked or not. And what can we expect as much as you can share? What's the vibe? You know.
So the vibe is it's so there's singles off of this album that have been that are released.
Okay.
And it's very so this one was primarily produced by or just executive produced by my homie Jeremy Page, who's an incredible producer. And we've released obviously some of that, and it's done really well. So I guess this came about because Jeremy and I started working together via our mutual friend Kendra Morris, who's super accomplished and incredible soul singer. She's on Coal Mine Records. She's killing it right now. And Jeremy and her worked together for years, and we have a bunch of we have a lot of mutual friends in the network. And me and Jeremy have been like ships passing in the night for years, and like never really got together until we worked on a remix that I asked Kendra to be a part of. And then Kendra was like, "Oh, Jeremy should produce it." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's perfect." And they did a remix of my song "The Gray," which my boy DJ Skiz produced, who's also friends with Jeremy and Kendra. And it came out really dope, and we had a great time working on it. And Kendra killed it, Jeremy killed it, and then I mean, Kendra really championed it a lot too. She's like, "You guys should work together." And then Jeremy's like, "Yeah, man, I love your style. I love the way you write. Like, your voice is awesome. Like, let's start making stuff." So he sent me a few things that I started writing on, and then I had a recent show with my newer band, The Butter. Shout out to The Butter, man. I love these dudes, and
I
that's a
love
cool
that
story about
name.
how,
It's
yeah,
so great. Yeah,
Johnny Burgos and The Butter, man.
that's so great. Yeah,
Yeah. I call them that because they put the ooh in smooth.
yeah.
'Cause
That's
they're
funny.
killing. They're killing.
Yeah,
And a bunch of young cats out of New York City, but they are killing, really killing. And I love playing with them. It's such an honor to play with just people so good, and it's fun. And and we haven't played a ton, but every stage we've hit so far has been like a I remember like Liza, my good friend, when she first saw us play together, she was like, and she knew my struggle with like live musicians and stuff, especially not having a lot of background in theory and like,
mhm,
but I knew my stuff, and I knew what felt right. I knew what good groove was. I couldn't always translate that, but and because of that, I needed guys who were killing, but also who had really little ego, who
mm,
can be like, listen, I know you don't know, like it could hear me give them feedback, even though I don't know anything about the instrument and I have
right,
very little theory, but like know that and trust that I know what I'm talking about and I know
right.
what I want for this song.
Totally.
And they're all of that and some. And yeah, they've taken my music to new heights. But I remember the first set that Liza saw, that the first set we finished, and Liza was like, "Dude, this is it. This is your fucking band. That was killer." So I was, I've been stoked. And the funny, actually, that same show was the first time Jeremy saw me play live, and he literally the first thing he said to me when I walked over to him after that show, he was like, "That was sick." He's like, "And I get it now. I'm gonna send you some stuff this week." And he just like something clicked for him seeing it live, and like,
Yeah.
and he said even intonation wise and everything, and he sent me like the next four beats in the batch he sent were like I wrote to them like that, and they were literally like I think the first four singles that have been
Mm.
out. I just went crazy, and then after releasing
Cool.
that first one, because I was like, let's put it out and see what happens. So we released it, and I thought it was actually going to go on a solo album that I was working on that was kind of all over the place, and collaborations here and there, some self-produced stuff. And then the first two really took off and got a lot of editorial love, and the growth was like exponential, but in a very I guess niche kind of scene. And like the first one got on the really big retro soul playlist on Spotify, which is like the biggest one in the world for
Oh,
that. And that created a lot of growth. And then the other one got on a big funk one, and I was like, all right, like maybe we should like hone in on this like sound for a second.
yeah.
And so then yeah, we just kept working, and then I was like, all right, like maybe we should, because the songs kept doing well and it kept growing and creating growth. And I signed a new publishing deal from it and like all these cool things. And I was like, all right, like, I think this is a thing. And then I started to realize, like, I kind of found my spot for at least right now, musically,
Right.
creatively. I was like, something I do with my voice and how I write and all the things coming together with Jeremy's production, like that people really like from me and they really
Mhm.
feel is like, because people kept saying things too that were really important. Like, man, you just like belong in this genre. You belong in this
Yeah.
sound. Like it just makes sense. Um, so then we ran with it. I was like, all right, like let me hone in and let's hone in together and like figure out how this can become a record
Yeah.
and like try to fill the gaps of like, things like tempo and certain subject matters and stuff, and like hit all the points that like my favorite records and our favorite records like hit, as like a really like a no skip kind of album. Um,
Those are the best.
yeah, and for me that was like an album that like even though this is like really rooted in retro soul and old stuff, because like Jeremy's a beast and he has incredible gear. He's a great engineer. He mixed everything as well. Um, and he records like world class level with you know with a lot of I guess retro nuance, but then still really modern capabilities because we're
Modern
ending up in the
vintage.
box, but like exactly,
Yeah.
but actually like dumping stuff through tape. And he's just got awesome techniques, and his drum sound is like unmatched in my opinion.
Cool.
And we just really kept cooking, and then we just held ourselves. It was funny because it wasn't even like there was like a deal in sight or anything. We were like, yeah, this is dope. We like this, so let's keep going. Like, and people were like, yo, people were telling us like, yo, this is special. Like, you guys
Mhm.
need to fucking. So we were, meeting as often as we could, like sometimes every week, or multiple days a week. Um, but it was about a year that we took to just like wrap everything up. But it shaped up, but it was cool because it still like goes a little everywhere. There's some hip hop influences. There's funk, there's soul, there's even a little Latin at some points.
Mhm.
But and even like within those genres, there's different eras. There's some '70s funk, there's some late '60s, there's some early '60s vibes. Like um, even like almost like a sample based like hip hop thing, but it's all still like real and made. Like,
Mhm.
but it sounds like it was like a hip hop sample flipped on beat, and I'm kind of like rhyming with like a melodic cadence. Um, so yeah, I think I'm really proud of it. I think it's a cool record. It's also for me writing wise. I loved certain aspects of the process, the fact that we were leaning into the retro soul, and Jeremy pushed me a lot on this because some of my other stuff is more modern and contemporary, so there's different approaches to it, and leaving the vocals really raw
Mhm.
and certain ones, and like and vulnerable, and that made me vulnerable, and I was just like, oh man, like I don't know, like I want to fix that. He's like, dude,
Stan,
don't
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like because certain things are like the tuning. I was like, oh, that I can sing that better. But he's like, yeah, but the feeling in that is fucking crazy. Like
Yeah.
leave it.
Yeah.
Um, so listening to that, and then I think that became a theme, and it just became really human. And I was like, it was actually helping me a lot in the last year I had, because life was getting tricky too, and just I think in general the world is tricky and tough at times, and taxing. And I think it reminded me that, like, wow, I think we're drifting a little bit sometimes, and technology, and for a lot of reasons, away from our humanity in ways. And this record was like a way for me to really tap into that. And then I'm very big on like purpose, and I'm sure if you're a listener or you've listened to enough of my stuff, you feel that in it, because I try to. My writing process is pretty cathartic, and I write from real experience and real life things, but I don't think I've ever dove in such a way, like with like vulnerability and really authentic messages and honesty, even like where I am now. And I leaned into wanting to make this record be a record that helps people feel more human right now as they listen to it and as they take it in. And because I think we need that. I really think we need that.
More than ever. We really
Yep.
do. That's amazing. Do you have is the butter featured on the record at all? Or, like, who's
Um,
playing most of the instrumentation?
a lot of them are actually on it in different capacities. It's hard because those guys are good, so they're busy. They're
Yeah.
booked and busy. And I love them. And then they also like they're all cooking too. So we all know the hustle, especially in a city like this. It's like, you know, not everybody's gonna make it on the record, even if they're like my mainstays in the live capacity. Like it's hard to do. And people know that, like, if you fuck with me, like you're not gonna be on everything I do, because I'm just prolific, and I keep it moving. And that doesn't mean like you're not in my band anymore or something, but like,
Right.
I gotta get things
Yeah.
done. And
Totally.
I also, I'm grateful that I know so many talented people where like I don't necessarily always need the guys in the band if, guys are here to do that. But I do love to pull them in when there's space and there's time and they're free, because they're younger cats too. And I like to show them a lot of the people I play with and work with, I do it for credit, but like I really give them the cut. And and I've taught a lot of them to the process of like, don't let somebody just tell you that. Like, make sure you have a PRO number, and a PRO with like an IPI number. You give them that information, you make sure they register it, so you're actually, it's tracked and everything. So
Mhm.
um I love that part of it too, like putting people on and showing people, because I think there's so many people who are like, and I don't mean this in a bad way, because I think sometimes it has a negative connotation in the word, but like are ignorant to certain things in the industry, or just don't know. And people will remain negligent and not let them know, even if they know that that's not the case, whatever they're believing. And I don't like to do that, because I was one of those people for a long time, so misinformed, and I was taken advantage of. And I like to, especially my people and like the people I love working with and I trust and I respect. I always try to put them on and help people learn, because yeah, I don't want them to get got like they did in ways.
Yeah.
But
I just think that the industry has changed so much in the past, 5, 10 years or so, and it's like, I feel like I'm having conversations with people here, and like we've all kind of realized that the industry that like we grew up hearing about and romanticizing is like that's not even what's happening anymore. It's just
like long gone,
it's
long
entirely
gone.
different. And so that's part of what this is about. It's talking to other people, just kind of like picking each other's brains, like, all right, what does it look like now? If it doesn't look like, you know, you get signed, you go in, you go do the tour. Like if it's not that anymore, then what the fuck is it? And it seemingly different for everyone.
I think it's super modular. That's what
Yeah.
it is, and you got to
Yeah.
find what works for you. But and back to just not just to cover it, like the personnel on the record was it was mainly Jeremy is a multi instrumentalist and a beast, even though he'll never tell anybody that because he's like super insecure about his like musical ability, which is crazy to me because he's so talented. But um, yeah, he played most of or almost all of the guitar and bass. Some of the bass on certain joints is my boy Oogie Josh Uguccini on who's in my band. He plays in the Butter. And then the Butter horns we got on a bunch of tracks. That shout out to Greg and Fernando. Murph, my boy Murph. He's actually my drummer, but he can fucking. He's one of those people who can play anything, and he's so fucking good. And they're all so fucking good, but Murph is just crazy. And he played a bunch of percussion on stuff. Um, I don't think Peter got on it. I don't think David is on it on that stuff. And then like dude Colin Brown, he's killer key player. He's on some key stuff. And then a lot of the drums actually was this dude Andy Bauer, he's actually Jeremy's studio partner. They own the studio together, and Andy's killing drummers. He got a killing groove. Super cool dude. And then Liza is actually the only like vocal feature on it. She's on a cool. We did a cool cover together on it. I'm really excited about. Um, and I think I know Evan. Shout out to Evan Howard, the High Mighty Brass Band. He's the drummer and like founder. Oh yeah, Nadav and Gabe, I think is the homie's name. Yeah, he played some other horns on stuff too. It's hard. Like there's a whole record. You're like, wait, who played on what?
That's
But
so cool. That's so
yeah,
cool. It makes me excited to listen to it. Like I said, like my last record I put out, no one touched a thing. So it's like hearing all these things. I'm like, man, this is like a total makes me think of the Gorillas or something. Like every track has different people doing different things. And that's like always been kind of a something I've wanted to do, but then seemingly just like I think it's easier for me to just go ahead and do it all. But um anyway, it sounds amazing. So that'll be out on June 7th, 2024. All
yeah.
I Ever Wonder by Johnny Burgos. We'll have all the links and stuff in the show notes. I have it's time for our final segment here. So I've got a question
Ah,
for you. I need you to tell me and our listeners something can be an EP, can be an album, can be a song that recently has had you super fired up to make your own music. It doesn't need to be new, doesn't need to be old. It just needs to be something that recently had you, inspired.
one thing, one
Yeah.
record, man.
Well, yeah, one song, one EP, one record. But yeah, those are our
Oh man,
parameters.
that's so hard.
And while you're thinking, I'll just explain. So this will wind up on a playlist, a public playlist that I have in the show notes. It's called A Collective Musical Mind. I think right now this is episode like 15. So there's 15, well, yeah, 15 people who've shared stuff. So it's still not that big of a playlist, but I'm hoping that as the years go by, this becomes like this super cool thing.
Yeah, but that's 15. That's an album at least right there. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And
Um,
some people have given albums, so I'll find out how many songs we got in it right now.
I'd say I guess the easiest way to go about this is maybe recently,
Yeah.
and the most recent release I've been really stuck on is the Brittany Howard new record. What now?
Oh,
She's so good.
that's cool. I've had
She's so damn good.
another guest of mine, she referenced Brittany Howard in her episode, so that's super cool. I'm
So
adding it
good.
to the playlist. I haven't heard it. I know Brittany Howard, but I haven't heard this. So
It's cool. And she's always just so innovative and authentic. It's just so her. There's no just no one else can be her, which is really cool.
right.
Because there's still a lot of good shit out there. I mean, there's a lot of just a lot. There's 100,000, over 100,000 songs released a day on streaming platforms. But
Really?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a scary fact. But
It is. I try not to get discouraged. It's so easy to get discouraged when you think about numbers on that. But you know what never it's never countered with how many listeners are there a day?
yeah,
Probably, I don't know, way more than, would you say, 100,000 songs
yeah,
released each day?
probably
Just get
probably billions a day. I'm sure.
Yeah. So if you think about it that way, like there's a place for you, you know?
That's a
Um,
really good. That's a really good like analogy or process for that. I like that a
uh,
lot. Actually, I'm gonna
gotta
steal that.
Yeah, gotta do whatever you can to keep your head above the water. But
For real, man. For real.
yeah. Well, that'll bring us to a close here. Thanks so much for your time. Anything else you want people to know about? Um, I'll have all your social media linked in the show notes and stuff. But if you want to share any of that, please do. Now's the time.
Yeah, sure. I mean, find me Johnny Burgos music on across like all platforms. But also more than anything, I mean, I love social media and I love connecting with people. But if you want to get to know me, I write real shit. Just listen to the music. Listen, just engage with the music wherever you listen. You can find my music wherever you're listening. Just listen to it, and there's gonna be a lot of cool things happening. I signed a new deal for this record. Shout out to LRK Records out of the UK, and we're doing vinyl. We're doing a 45, which is coming out soon, and we're doing the
Nice.
12 inches. Yeah, so and just shout out to all my people, man. Big love to my team and everybody on my side and all my creative homies. I'm so excited for what we're all working on and what we're about to do. Yeah,
Can't wait to hear it. Thanks so much for your time. And hopefully we'll have you back on. I'd love to hear you talk more about the music business side of things. I'm getting the sense that you know a lot of shit that I don't, and I'd like to pick your brain.
absolutely, man. I mean, I do the same. When I find people who I feel like you know more, I do the same thing. Like, how do you
Yeah,
know this?
it's what you got to do. All
Exactly,
right.
man.
Well, thank you. Have a great night, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you, and you do the same. Have a good night, man.
Thanks for making it to the end on this one with Johnny Burgos, the singer and producer out of New York. This was a sweet episode. I had a blast talking to Johnny, getting to know him a little bit on the air. We talked a bit about collaborating, and I want to hold true on that. So hold me accountable, people. If you don't hear anything about that, shoot me a DM and say, "Yo, make some shit for Johnny to sing on," and I'll make it happen. Anyway, give him a follow. Everything's linked in the show notes. And my message for y'all today is to get outside and soak up the sun. Till next time.
Thanks for listening to A Musical Mind. I have been your host, Richard Raymond II. If you, your band, or your friend, or anyone you know is in need of mixing and mastering services, I offer that remotely. Shoot me an email. That's richardraymond2@gmail.com. No spaces, all spelled out. You can also give me a follow, Richard_Raymond_II on Instagram. Shoot me a DM. We'll get to making some cool shit. And please like this podcast, share it with a friend, give it a 5-star rating. It ain't too hard to do. I appreciate you for being here, and I'll see you next time.